Welcome to the BS Show. Are you ready to shoot the... The BS Show would like to thank their sponsors. Jack Cameron, accredited mortgage professional. Jack can show you the way home. Draco Impact Sports, providing top quality combat sport equipment tested and used by all levels of athletes. Dominate your world. RepoSales.ca, specializing in vehicle and equipment recovery, liquidation, and sales. Hemmings House Pictures, the global movement media makers, helping tell your brand story to the world and accelerate the momentum of your movement. Farmbox Films, capturing stories the way you want to remember them.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the BS Show. It's the one and only podcast dedicated to mixed martial arts and combat sports in Atlantic Canada. My name's Craig Ferguson. I'm your guest host, filling in for Boyd Sharpe and Rick Trash Canyon Doyle. Those boys are getting some well-needed rest, and they're scouring Atlantic Canada for the scoop on local MMA and combat sports. I'm here with Skippy. Skippy, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, brother. How are you tonight?
Good. Skippy's all the way in Oregon. We were talking a little bit before he came on the air about the weather. You guys know what kind of a miserable day we had in Atlantic Canada today. Skippy, what's the weather like in Oregon?
It was T-shirts and shorts and a lot of sunblock.
It's disgusting. We don't want to hear about it. Tonight we're going to be talking a lot about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Again, my name's Craig Ferguson. I'm a brown belt at Titans. If you haven't met me, I'm sort of a big guy with amazing hair. If you see me at local tournaments or Submission Series Pro, where I do the announcing or play-by-play, please come up and talk to me. Love to talk to people who are fans of mixed martial arts or involved with mixed martial arts or involved with Jiu-Jitsu here in Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. We're going to get into talking a lot about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tonight. I'm really excited to talk about the Abaya tournament. Skippy, I know you've heard us talking about this for the last couple of weeks. It's probably the biggest and best run tournament in Atlantic Canada. There's clubs from all over the three maritime provinces here on the east coast of Canada. They all come. It's the tournament with the best-looking medals. It's the tournament with the most competition. This year there's a televised portion, which I think is super exciting and not the kind of thing you hear about in many places. So I'm pretty pumped to talk about that. And we're going to be talking about, it took kind of a turn. I have a daughter who's 8 years old, and she competed for the first time. We're going to talk a little bit about what that was like. Competed against one of the students of one of our guests. Dana Dickeson will be the first person on. He's from Synergy MMA in Fredericton. And then later on, we're going to have Jaret MacIntosh on. Jaret's not only going to talk about, we're going to kind of wrap up that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu talk from the weekend. We're also going to talk about Submission Series Pro, which is an event that Jaret was the referee for first time around. This time he's going to put on the gi, I believe, and take on Dan Koval, a very interesting black belt from New York City. So we'll get right to it. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about some headlines very quickly for fans of maritime mixed martial arts. Today in Las Vegas were the tryouts for the Ultimate Fighter, and PEI's Lenny Wheeler tried out. He's not a fighter that I know a lot about, but he was a very successful guy out of Wolf Run MMA. And I'm super excited that my former teammate Mike, the main attraction Malott, who is training out of Titans, who has since moved on to train in Sacramento with Alpha Male. Mike Malott tried it today for the Ultimate Fighter. We don't know the results of that yet, but everybody's talking about it. I hear that Jiu-Jitsu phenom Ryan Hall tried out as sort of a possibly a backdoor to the UFC. It's going to be a really interesting group of fighters on it. I think this is a 22nd round of tough. Skippy, do you still watch The Ultimate Fighter? Oh, I might have caught Skippy unawares. He may not be there. I haven't watched The Ultimate Fighter in a long time, but there's a couple guys from Atlantic Canada on there. That would get me watching. And as a bit of a self-described jiu-jitsu nerd, if Ryan Hall's on a TV show, I'm watching. He's got a unique style, not only of jiu-jitsu, super aggressive, super technical, but he's also become active in wrestling competition just to challenge himself, gets involved in MMA. He's good friends with Truro, Nova Scotia's own world-class black belt Jake McKenzie, and when Jake got, I think it was when Jake got married, Ryan came up and did a seminar at Titans. So he's someone that we've seen here in Atlantic, Canada, and lots of people here are big fans of his. I know Josh Presley from Titans also went down to Ryan's gym 50/50 in Virginia to train with them. It's a big weekend, as I said before, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Nova Scotia. The Abaya Open Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Championship took place. It took over the gymnasium at King's Edge Hill School in Windsor, Nova Scotia. Huge event, 16 teams. There were 186 competitors, and just terrific. The team title went to Victory Jiu-Jitsu out of Moncton, which is Professor Shane Rice's home club. They deserve a lot of credit for that victory. I saw some amazing competitors there. We might talk later about this. Mike Thibodeau from Victory Jiu-Jitsu in New Brunswick. My personal favorite discovery. Just happy to meet a new guy who's so excited about jiu-jitsu, had a terrific style. I think he caught my attention because he was competing against purple and brown belts, but he was wearing a white belt. We'll get into that a little bit later. It turns out he has an MMA background, certainly no stranger to competition, but just never ranked. I have some quick results from there. There are two divisions that were on Eastlink TV, and will be broadcast at a later date, were the men's purple and brown combined divisions. In the 175-pound and below class, Gavin Tucker took gold. He closed out the bracket with Titans teammate Connor Gillette, and Michael Spainline from Zombie Proof Jiu-Jitsu in Sydney, Nova Scotia, took the bronze in that division. I was pretty excited at the possibility of Gavin Tucker and Michael Spainline facing each other. They're both ECC mixed martial arts champions, but that didn't happen, and that's how it goes sometimes. In men's purple and brown 175 pounds and up, Scott Noss took the gold. Cole Peach from Flatline MMA took the silver, and Pat Carroll from Titans here in Halifax took the bronze. Another match that I was excited about that didn't happen was Scott Noss versus Jesse Allen. But despite both of those matches that I sort of fantasized looking at the brackets, neither of those matches happened, but we still saw all sorts of interesting things go down. And, Mike Kitson was there in the mix, a guy who I love to see compete. He's just got a great positive attitude. Those are both great divisions. The whole Abaya thing for me this weekend was long and exhausting. I had double or triple duty. I'm just going to take a minute to tell you guys about that before we get Dana Dickeson on, because we're going to talk a little bit more about that. The day started out for me watching my 8-year-old daughter, Aya, compete in the under 9 years old white and yellow belt division. And one of the great things about the Abaya tournament is they have a huge kids division, and they do a really good job of moving through those matches pretty quickly, and they have a no submissions stipulation for kids under 9. That's what attracted my daughter. She was, is new to submissions, and she's a bit worried about it. So she went. She had 2 matches. She lost both of them. It was kind of tough for her. I had a great time coaching, and in fact, coaching against Dana Dickeson during my daughter's first match. And I hear Dana's in the queue now. Dana, are you there?
I am, Craig. I am here. Yes.
Do you remember what I'm talking? It's nice to have you on the show. First of all, Dana.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Having me. And I do. I remember exactly what you're talking about. She was competing against one of our little ones named Gwen.
That's right. And to bring people up to speed, Dana here is a black belt, and he runs and represents Synergy MMA in Fredericton. So Dana, first of all, on a scale of totally innocent to absolute monster, what kind of jiu-jitsu stage parent was I?
Oh, no, you were awesome, man. It really made me reflect on a couple of years ago, my daughter Emily competed for the first time at the Fit Plus annual tournament and, lost 2 matches, got submitted. Was going to quit jiu-jitsu. That was that. She had enough. And then 10 minutes later was telling me, next time I compete, I'm going to do this differently. So her discouragement faded pretty quickly. So it's great experience, win or lose.
How did you guys get through it? Like, did she just make the decision on her own after that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wanted her to train jiu-jitsu when she was younger, and she just wasn't interested. But when she was about 8 years old, and she started showing more interest, and I felt like it was the right time, and she's been a fanatic ever since. So, it grows on the kids in due course, I think.
How big is your kids program over there?
We have probably about 30 kids all together, and we divide them up into 3 age groups, the little young ones, and then a sort of middle 7 to 10 age group, and then a 10 plus. And then, now because we've been running the program for a few years, we have a few teens as well. So they've kind of moved up into the adult/teen program. So it's great to see the kids growing. It's awesome. It's well worth it.
It's interesting for me because I helped teach one of the kids' class at Titans, and then when I was in Hawaii on vacation recently, and I managed to see kids' class at Gracie Kailua in Kailua on the island of Oahu, and I managed to see a few kids' classes at Maui Jiu-Jitsu in Haiku in Maui, and a couple different approaches. What is it like when somebody walks into a kids' class at Synergy?
Well, for us, it sort of depends on the age. With the younger group, we try and keep it playful, but still a learning environment, but something that they can relate to and enjoy. With the older kids, I mean, we treat it similar to an adult's class. We try and push them in the warm-up, and we focus on technique, with a certain amount of detail that's sort of, relevant or that they're able to understand. And they get a lot of rolling and sparring, and I think there's only one way to learn, and so we try and not stray too far from the course.
Yeah, I'll tell you 2 interesting things that I saw. One, in Kailua, I saw the owner of that club, I believe, spent a lot of time with the Gracie family and I don't know which branch offhand, in Brazil. And one thing I thought was very interesting is, in addition to running a really well-structured class where the kids all listened, he was making the kids learn basic terms in Portuguese, which
I
is
think
totally
that's a great idea.
A surprise to me.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I know Fabio Holanda, my professor and the head of BTD Canada, they're adamant about that. All of their techniques are named in Portuguese, and the classes are run in as much Portuguese as possible. So they really focus on that as well, and that's in Montreal.
I think it's interesting in a kids program because, to me, it sort of reminds me in a positive way that, learning karate when I was a kid or something. There's that element of getting a window into another culture that maybe people forget about sometimes with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it's so closely tied to MMA in Atlantic Canada. There's not so many Brazilian people here. Do you do that in your program?
Yeah, I mean, we have the kids count in Portuguese, and that I think that's an important part of it. But I mean, our restraint is just that we don't know Portuguese ourselves. Otherwise I definitely see the value, and I'm like you. I remember, sort of going to my karate class as a 9-year-old and learning to count in Korean, and I think that's great. I think that we need to always remember sort of the culture that's behind the art because it's important to what the art stands for, really.
And the other interesting thing I saw was at Maui Jiu-Jitsu, I saw 2 tiers of classes. First, my daughter went to a class for kids who are probably a little younger than her, and she has a lot of pride, and she found it too easy. So she wanted to go to the bigger kids class. The bigger kids class was one of the most difficult jiu-jitsu classes I've ever seen for adults or kids. Every time a kid stepped out of line, 20 burpees.
Wow.
And so by the end of this class, these kids had done 200 burpees. And though it was really hard on my daughter because she wasn't in that kind of shape, I was surprised at the grit and determination. The other kids all got through it. And Maui is an interesting place because it's kind of full of a lot of hippies. And these kind of hippie moms were sitting inside with kind of dreads in their hair, and they're like, yeah, the kids learn a lot about determination in this class. Like, they just kind of understood. That approach may not be for everyone, but I wonder, how do you keep discipline in your kids' program?
It's difficult, but we don't. I remember the push-ups when you do something wrong, and I just could never relate to that myself. And I don't feel like we talk about sort of cultural influences in our martial arts, and to me, that's just not. That's not part of the culture that I've ever experienced in jiu-jitsu. So I would wonder maybe where that instructor's background came from. Maybe he was a traditional martial artist, beforehand, or those might resonate with him. But for me, it's really, we just try and teach the kids about respect and respect for each other, and that improvement comes through focus. And it's sometimes not easy, but it's that's generally pretty effective for us. And then a couple of good cross chokes when they get a line, of course.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you'd love to beat the kids up sometimes, but it's not allowed. Yeah.
No, they do love to roll with the instructors, though. Their favorite game, and one of our favorites too, is beat up sensei. So it's just a chance to pass our guards and put lots of cross-face pressure on us, and they really like that. So they get theirs, I guess, in the end.
How did your kids do at the tournament this weekend?
Well, we did great, actually. Melissa Hutchinson, who did a great job down there and is a former Ab Hyatt team member and now a member of our team, she tallied up the scores, and she had let us know that we came in actually second in the team results. So we had 15 competitors, and only 6 of which were kids, because it is a bit of a long trip for us, about 4.5 hours or so. Overall, I thought our team did really well. I'm super happy to see. We've always felt like we're a step behind. Jiu-jitsu hasn't been around in New Brunswick as long as it has in Nova Scotia. So for us to be down there and standing up with the best in the region, I'm pretty happy with that. And the kids, they looked really sharp. You can see all their hard training paying off. And we have an environment where we really do encourage our students to train hard, regardless of whether they want to compete or whether they, what their goals are. We think there's a lot of value in that, and I think you can see the results in that for sure. So I'm pretty proud from a coaching perspective.
What were the standout performances that you saw at the Abaya tournament this weekend? Was there anybody you saw who really impressed you, maybe that you didn't know, or is there a student of yours who overcame adversity in a particular match?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm sure, and you have a lot of coaching experience too, and you see trends in your students and in the sport in general. And one of the things that I really wanted to encourage with my students, and I've been working on for the last few months, is just regardless of where you are in the match or how much trouble you're in or how many points you're down, that you can always change things by, staying in the game and continuing to look for your opportunity. And I saw that happen over and over and over again, not just with my students, but with the jiu-jitsu players in the, overall. So it's a real lesson to, really stick to it. And if you're in a bad position, you're down 7 points. I mean, you and I both know how quick that can change. It can change in a second. So, overall, that was sort of something I saw from my students that I was really, really proud of. As far as a standout, now, one of my students who, John Williams, everybody calls him Judo. He was one of my very, very first students and, a white belt when he started with me and very green. And he's worked his way up to a brown belt, and I really, really have seen an improvement in his game recently. And I thought he put on a really solid performance on Saturday, so I was really pumped to see him do so well.
Yeah, I've been really excited to watch judo lately. This isn't a secret. I said it during the broadcast on Eastlink. I felt like Devin Viner did verbally tap during his match to catch people up. There was a really exciting match between Devin Viner, who's at a Fit Plus in Dartmouth now, and Judo John Williams at a Synergy. And Judo was down on points, and he came back in this really interesting scramble transition, and he kind of went for the arm lock on one side, and then I think scrambled across body and managed to lock on the arm lock on the other side. And he had it in, his knees pinched, and he went for the arm lock, and it seemed to my ears anyways that there was an exclamation from the middle of the mat that Devin, cried out in pain, which is a verbal submission under the rules, and judo is a good sport, and he let up. I think that it was probably just an honest mistake on Devin's part, that he didn't realize or didn't want to accept what had happened and just kept going. The referee was distracted. There was a lot going on because it was very unusual for us to have the TV production happening there, and it was the first match of these televised divisions that day. But good sportsmanship on Judo's part, because it's not the way that you want to see a match end. He ended up losing on points when he had seemingly submitted Devin.
Yeah, and I saw it the same way, Craig. Honestly, I did. And I'm with you. I don't think it was anything, intentional. You're in the heat of the moment. You're in battle, and from the outside looking in, it's easy to say this happened or that happened. But Judo too, that's what he felt like it happened, and he let up on the arm lock, which most of us would do. The ref didn't see it, and Devin kept going, and that's something that in MMA, I understand. Don't stop it until the ref pulls you off, but that's not the mentality that I think we should foster in a jiu-jitsu event. There's no money on the line. There's kids there. There's families there. So to me, I hope that's not the lesson that comes out of this. I think that it's an unfortunate situation, and at the end of the day, it really had no major effect on anybody. We feel like we know who won the match, and regardless of that or anything else that happened, John looked real sharp, and he's been a real gentleman about it. So he, all in all, no big deal.
And Judo had a match against John Barr, who he's going to be facing June 20th at Submission Series. So it's nice to get a preview of that. Now, I was, for the life of me today, trying to remember how that match went. I did the play-by-play on all the matches in those divisions for Eastlink Television, and I can't remember some of them already. Can you remind us how that match went with Judo and John Barr?
It was a good match. You can tell John's a powerful guy, and they had some scrambly moments, but in the end, John was able to submit him. I think it was an arm lock. I was all over the place too, but I know that John did submit him for sure. But, John and I talked about that after, and from his perspective, he knows that that's going to send John back to the gym to train even harder. So we look at that as that's nice for the record. John's got hands on this guy. They know what each other feels like. But I don't know, you can't count on that being the same result. So I know Judo is really committed to hard training for July.
I've known John Barr since he was a fat little kid with red hair who showed up at Fit Plus. And he's very determined, and this will definitely motivate him. TJ Grant gave John the nickname The Badger, which would tell you something about his determination, and I know that he's often been he's one of the guys that TJ always like to partner with for wrestling drills. He's very good stand-up, has very good takedowns, tight little wrestler. And I think that one thing, and you don't want to criticize a guy when you're not, how I'm on the line, but I think the one thing that John Barr lacks sometimes is competitive fire. He hasn't competed that much. I know it wasn't necessarily the thing that excited me most about jiu-jitsu. I haven't been training with him for the last couple of years, so I was excited to see that he signed up for Submission Series Pro, that he's willing to, go out there and represent his academy, and maybe he's found that fire.
Well, he looked good on the mats on Saturday, and the fact that he was willing to put his pride on the line and knowing that there's a good chance that John Williams would be in that division as well. He signed up and looked good. And really, if anything, it's a good learning experience for him. So, and I believe the match, and maybe you know better, but I believe it's Nogi in July.
Oh, no, so, yeah, you're probably right. I wish, I should have made better notes on that stuff coming into this.
Yeah, me too, but that's okay. I'm sort of a fly-by-the-seat of my pants guy.
I loved seeing Judo in the first submission series because he just flew onto that Kimura. And I don't know if you've seen that match with the actual play-by-play that happened, but they had brought in a sponsor to sit down with the play-by-play guys. And he's a white belt. He's a white belt who owns a car dealership, and he's a student of Jaret's and seemed like a very nice guy. His name, I think, was Tony. And so I came in from announcing. Dan Vanderlance handed me a headset, and I was sitting with this guy, and I remember before I said, Tony, what do you know about jiu-jitsu? And he's like, well, just a little bit. I've been training for about 3 months. And I said, well, you should watch out for this because John's on that Kimura grip, and this thing's about to be over. And just like that, it was done.
Wow, yeah. That's one of his best transitions. I mean, he's we come by that honestly because BTT and Fabio, Kimura is the move. So, all of my guys learn to attack that from everywhere. And that's something that once John gets on that grip, he's really, really difficult to beat. So I shouldn't be giving away all his weapons, but he's got a lot more in his bag of tricks than that. But that's definitely, I wasn't surprised that that's how it went. That's one of John's just go-to sequences. He's on autopilot when he hits that.
Oh, man, I love seeing everybody using that Kimura grip to pass, especially in the no-gi, all through the submission series. I feel like that was the story of the first event.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And it's a super popular submission right now. You remember when that David Avalan had the Kimura trap system a couple of years ago, kind of hit the internet, was really popular?
I do. And I sent away for the free sample.
Yeah, me too. And then I never stopped getting emails, like 8 a day from them. But you've got to pay the piper, I guess, eventually. But people started realizing that there's some utility to that grip. And a person can't score a point on you as long as you're holding on to it. So as long as you are confident in your scrambles, I think that's a pretty safe position for regardless from where you hit it.
Now, what about you? You were slated originally for the first submission series against Scott Noss, but I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I got injured. I'm no spring chicken anymore, unfortunately. And I really been trying to sharpen up my stand-up game and was out of the judo club training with a great judoka, James McManus, but the guy's the 300-plus pound national champion. And we landed the wrong way, and I was on the bottom, and he just crushed my ribs. So I was out. It was 6 weeks with no rolling, and that's the real first stint in as long as I can remember that I've been off the mats for that long. So it was a challenging time for me, but I've talked to Derek on Saturday, and he's confident that he's going to find a matchup for me in the September card. So I am excited to compete in that sort of format. I really found it interesting, and I do love to compete. So I'd like to get the opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds terrific. I'll be there. It's hilariously booked on my wedding anniversary.
No.
My long-suffering wife has already told me that she's okay with that, if you can believe that.
I do. I have a similar awesome jiu-jitsu wife as well. So I don't get slack around everything, but usually jiu-jitsu related I do.
I think Saturday it might have been the first time my wife ever saw competitive jiu-jitsu. And I think it was very nerve-wracking for her to be seeing her daughter in it.
Yeah, I bet.
It was an eye-opener for me to be reminded of how people from outside the sport see the sport sometimes. It would be interesting. I would be curious to see if she wants to come out to a submission series to see kind of a grown-up thing. My wife, we got married and I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu. So I started about a year after we got married, I guess, and she has been eternally patient. And, I'm out at the gym 4 nights a week, and, I've got mats in the basement at the house and stuff.
For sure.
We went on a family trip to Brazil, and then when we were just in Hawaii last month, I love that Maui Jiu-Jitsu, that club, so much, and I went and trained there 15 times. I just bought a 1-month pass. I'm going to train 15 times. I was on vacation. Awesome. So, I mean, what about you? What about your spouse? Is she involved? Like, you own the gym, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she is, actually. She's always loved jiu-jitsu, and, she's always been a big supporter of me throughout my MMA career and things like that. But she was working evenings for years and not able to practice. Jiu-jitsu typically happens in the evening. So we would kind of play around, but she could never be serious. But since our son was born, he's a year and a half now, she's dedicated herself to a lot of jiu-jitsu and training really regularly. And she's actually, if all goes well for her, going to receive her blue belt in June in Montreal at our headquarters grading. So pretty exciting, actually. That's something nice to share together.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that she kind of went away for it for a while and then came back to it, and especially with it taking up so much of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a nice way for us to spend time together. And my wife has always been an athlete and very competitive, so that appeals to her. She likes to compete, and she couldn't make it down this year to the Ohio, but she competed, did well there last year, and has competed a few times. So, yeah, she likes it. It's fun. So that's her, myself, and my 12-year-old daughter. We're all heavily involved in jiu-jitsu, and now I'm teaching the 1.5-year-old to pass the guard every day on the floor. So we're getting there. You know, I think we're going to have a family full.
I've got a 4-year-old myself, and it's interesting to see how the different dispositions work out. You know, the 8-year-old is very, creative and into dance, and like a little bit more. I don't want to say delicate, but I feel like you know what I'm getting at. And
yeah, absolutely.
The 4-year-old, she is rough and tumble, and she was off in the bullpen, where all the kids were warming up on that mat at the end of the Abaya tournament.
Yeah.
And she just grabbed a 6-year-old boy, single-legged him, and took him down. And she's never learned that technique in her life. She's had 2 jiu-jitsu classes, and she, the first time that she rolled, like the first class or second class she went to, we had to do a little match with a little boy who's her size. Just they wanted to do what the bigger kids were doing. And, I asked her afterwards how it went, and she said, I grabbed him and I threw him down and I made him play dead.
That's great.
So she has it in her for sure. Hey, Dana, it's been really nice to talk to you. I think Jaret's coming up in the queue. But before we go, is there anything else you want to say or anything else you want to talk about?
No, not at all. Actually, you know what? I do want to give a shout-out to John Foster and his crew for the tournament on Saturday. I've been around jiu-jitsu for a long time here in the Maritimes, and I've never seen a tournament like that. I've seen that tournament evolve over the years, but what a great job. So it's super and exciting to see the fruit of all of our labor, guys like you and me and John and Shane and the Fit Plus and Titans coaches and everybody who's been around for so long, grinding it out when there was 6 people training at your academy. And now there's tournaments of 200 people, and it's super. So I'm really pumped to see that happening. Let's keep it going.
Terrific, and thank you for mentioning that. I mentioned my wife earlier, and I remember the first time she dropped me off at a jiu-jitsu tournament, it was literally in a garage with cars parked around it, and there was one mat in the corner, and there was a bunch of dudes standing around in their underwear to weigh in, and she took one look around and said, yeah, if this is your new hobby, you can have it to yourself. So I think her walking into that King's Edge Hill gym on Saturday, and see how far jiu-jitsu's come in Nova Scotia, it's a really stark contrast, and it's guys like John and everybody else who are putting in the work and getting things done. The Zabaya crew deserve a lot of credit for the tournament they put on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, well said. They did a great job. It was top to bottom a really enjoyable day. So looking forward to it next year.
Thanks for coming on, Dana. It was really nice to talk to you. I said that we were going to talk a bit more about your history and stuff, but we got all sorts of interesting topics, so I'll have to corner you at the next tournament.
Lots of relevant stuff and an excuse to get back on the show.
All right, perfect. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Craig. Have a good night, man. Take care.
You too. So that was Dana Dickeson from Fredericton at Synergy Fight Team, and I would be super excited to see him back on the mat sometime soon competing, especially if he gets into submission series. They've just announced a September 18th card, and that's the one he was referring to, which is my 11th wedding anniversary. My wife will be watching from the front row. I love to see big guys doing jiu-jitsu, and Dana is a big guy like me, so I've never even seen him roll. I'd love to see what he brings to the table sometime. Speaking of big guys, I think that Skippy has Jaret MacIntosh all queued up. Is that right, Skippy?
Yep, he's live.
Hey, Jaret.
How you doing, Craig? What's going on?
Hey, how's Pictou County?
Oh, it's awesome, man. I just finished training about an hour ago, so just got showering here and laying in bed talking to you guys.
Amazing. So this is our second guest of the night, and I brought him on abruptly. It's Jaret MacIntosh, the sort of father figure of the motley crew of guys over at Pictou County Titans.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
No problem. We've been talking a lot today about the Abaya tournament. How did your team make it there?
Oh, man, we did awesome. Like, I was super impressed with my guys. I mean, I have a pretty young club, and we got three gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze. So I was pretty impressed with the boys. We have, like I say, we have mostly white belts, and they all did awesome, man. So I was really impressed. They made me happy.
What were the standout performances for you this weekend?
The standard performances.
You're like, who did you, even if it's someone from your own club who you just wanted to give a shout out to, who did a great job, or was there a competitor you saw who you weren't familiar with who really impressed you?
Yeah, I mean, we have like I say, a young club, and all our white belts, there's some of them are getting really close to blue belt, and there's the 3 guys that got gold, and the guy who got silver. Those guys super, been training the last couple months super hard, and they stood out a lot to me, and I'm super proud of them, man. There's the guy who got silver, Matt McKay. He fought in the gold medal match, and then I thought he was going to have it, but the guy caught him in an armbar. That happens. We've all got caught, in tournaments, and it's just one of those things that happens. And he was so close. He was pretty disappointed, but man, I was pretty happy. He got, whatever you get silver. It was great.
We're going to talk in a little while about your upcoming match at Submission Series Pro, but I'd like to just talk a little bit more about your club. Tell me about Pictou County Titans.
Yeah, like I say, we're we train like 4 or 5 days a week, and I started off teaching as a white belt, now I have a black belt, and like I always say to the students, we had it hard. We had a trial and error. I go up and see Peter and Kevin, once a month, and they show me technique, and we drill it, and we just it took us a long time to get where we were, but they can just ask me directly any question, and, most of the time I'll know, or I'll ask, Peter or Kevin, my coaches, and they'll, they just have such a quicker route to learn, so, to see the progression in Nova Scotia, the jiu-jitsu progress so high, it's getting so big now, it's awesome. So our club's really starting to build, and like the boys tonight after class, they were sitting there drilling techniques with each other, and I was sitting against the wall just watching, like, man, I love this right now, seeing the boys drill after class. I'm like, that really impressed me, so I'm happy with it.
It really has come a long way in the last 8 years. When I first started, you just never saw a black belt, to be honest. And when I started, Peter and Kevin were still brown belts. Peter Martell and Kevin Taylor from Titans. TJ Grant was a purple belt. Jake McKenzie was a purple belt. You hardly even saw anyone above purple, I remember the first time I met Shane Rice, I thought it was like meeting Darth Vader.
Yeah, I know. I remember training with Shane Rice when, I think he was a blue belt. It was in Truro, and I was just obviously a white belt, and I was just a judo guy, and man, and then he took off to California and did his thing. But man, get the role. I was like, this is a blue belt, man. I was like, holy smokes, it's crazy now. I mean, how many black belts do you have in Nova Scotia now? It's we must have 5, hometown boys.
Yeah, it's some crazy thing. I think there's 5 some nights on the mats at Titans.
Yeah, I mean,
crazy. How did you get started in this? We talked a minute ago. You called yourself a judo guy. You're a black belt in judo?
Yeah, I started when I was 16, 17. I seen the first UFC, and I seen Hoist Gracie, like most people did. And there was nothing around, no jiu-jitsu around. So I used to use this big stuffed animal in my basement to actually do triangles to it and arm bars. I had no partners. My brother had nothing to do with it, right? So I used this stuffed animal, and then I heard of a judo club, and I was like, okay, I'll go try this out. And so I went to the judo club, and I was like, I'll see how I do, you know. And anyways, I got choked out like crazy and, you know, thrown around. So, you know, there was no jiu-jitsu clubs then, so I just started training judo and, you know, fell in love with that and kept, you know, I mostly love the groundwork always, like even in judo, but they don't give you much time, as you know. You train judo as well, don't you, Craig?
Yeah, I do, a little bit.
So it's, you know,
I haven't had a chance to compete yet. Did you compete much at judo?
Yeah, I competed for the Nova Scotia team for quite a few years. I went to nationals, you know, quite a few times and traveled all around Canada, and I went to some of the States too as well. I mean, I never placed the national level. It's really hard, and I got fifth one year. I fought for a bronze medal, got fifth, and I was pretty impressed with myself just doing that. You know, not really having a coach. You know, like we were kind of just me and Matt McGrath kind of just did it on our own here. Like we just kind of coached each other, and you know, if you don't move to Montreal for judo, you're not going to progress very far. It's a tricky sport, man. One little mistake and you're on your back and it's over. You don't get time to come back.
So how did you wind up starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu then?
Yeah, I started going to Truro and training with, you know, Chuck Sproul and Jake McKenzie and them, and you know, he had up this guy named Marcio I can't remember Marcio's last name. It wasn't Marcio Fatoza, it was a different Marcio. And it was a Brazilian guy he had up, and I started training there. And then the odd time Kevin and Peter would come down as well. So I ended up going to Halifax, starting to train with Kevin and Peter, you know, at this place called Chocolate Lake. It was a school. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but it was at a school, and it was down beside the boiler room, in a room that was probably, it wasn't very big. It had to be 10 by 20 maybe. And it was beside this boiler room, and I mean, it was hot. There was probably me, Kevin, Peter, Roger, and a few other guys. I can't remember the names, but there wasn't very many of them, man. It was, you know, going there with those beasts there, man, and, you know, not knowing much. I mean, and plus how hot it was beside the boiler room, it was crazy. And then we went from there to the Palace. We trained in the Palace for a little while.
That's for people who are listening outside of Halifax. It's like the nightclub that Peter managed.
Yeah, we trained in
during the daytime. You guys would roll out the mats over the broken beer bottles and broken drinks.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, you always got glass your foot the odd time there. You know there was a party the night before. But then we went from there to the out at was it Fairview? Sorry.
Yeah, the Fairview Club. I mean, I didn't start my training at Titans. I started at Fit Plus, and I'll tell you, I went to the Fairview Club the first time I was a TV news reporter, and to do a story about the sanctioning of MMA for the first time in Nova Scotia for the first ECC. And I had been training a little bit. Actually, I wasn't training at Fit Plus, and I was training at Bushido Kai. Is where I actually started. And I remember seeing, you know, that Fairview Club, to call it a dungeon is unfair to dungeons.
Oh,
it was rough around the edges.
Oh, it was like walking in a Rocky's old training center. It was pretty crazy, and man, like I started training there, and they ended up giving my blue belt, and then I actually went down to Henzo's in New York with Kevin and Peter. Me and Jason Rorson went down to Henzo's with Kevin and Peter, and they were, you know, starting to look for their black. They were brown belts and looking for their black belt, you know, get graded. So we went down with them for the trip, and you know, I got to do some good classes with John Dominator, and John Dominator graded me my purple belt and graded Jason his blue belt, and then Peter and Kevin, you know, they trained there as the brown belts, and then we went back home, and they went back down a month later for the grade, and you know, the black belt grading ceremony they have every year. So they got the black belts. So it was pretty cool. It was a cool experience, and I got closer to Peter and Kevin, a lot closer to them on that trip. And you know,
well, this is what, a 24-hour drive each way from Halifax to New York City.
We flew, yeah, we flew there. So we stayed for a week.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, we trained for a week at a Henzo's. Like you know, we just played a drop-in fee, and I trained 3 times a day mostly. Some of the guys didn't get up as early as me. I go train I like John Dahmer has a morning class there, and I loved it. So I was training there as much as I could. I was pretty sore, so I didn't go uptown very often. I'm not a big city guy, so kind of a country boy. So I just walk there, train, come home, sleep, shower, go back again, train, and come home, sleep, shower, eat, and back and train again at night, and just get as much as I could in, right? So it was a great experience, and I came home and just started, you know, like, opened my own club up, and you know, started training from there as a purple belt, and then Peter and Kevin eventually ended up giving me my brown and my black, and you know, I'm under Peter and Kevin. But like I say, like I only get to see Peter and Kevin like you know, once or even maybe 3, 4, 5 times a year. So I kind of had to do everything on my own. And honestly, like when Marcelo Garcia put out MG in Action, I joined that right away because you know everybody looks up to him, and I love his style. And honestly, that's what really made me who I am nowadays. Even though I've never trained there or known him, I don't know him at all. But MG in Action has made me to have the game that I have because it gave me a guide to follow. You know, I never really had a coach, like one-on-one coach all the time. So online was how I learned. Honestly, it was, and you know, on our own, you know, trial and error a lot. Like a lot of mistakes we made, and we had to fix them. But it's helped me a lot. MG Action has helped me out a lot.
So for all the struggle and difficulty, you know, like when you lay it all out there, you kind of went through a lot just to get the training. And you look at those guys you have at your club who have a club to go to, they have a black belt to ask questions to. For everything they've gained, do you think that they lose anything in having it a little bit easier?
I think sometimes, yeah, it's trying to figure it, like dissecting all the moves, like, oh, what, this not working right. And you have no one there to ask, and figuring out all the wrong ways to do it, and then figure out the right way. Sometimes that is good because, you know, you kind of you learn everything about the whole move instead of just learning the right way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a lot quicker. Those guys learn a lot faster than I did because they're learning, you know, the right thing to do, and you know, I'm giving them a fast track to how to do something. But sometimes learning the wrong way, you can kind of feel. I think it's kind of a good thing in a way too sometimes, but it is a lot longer process. But I think in the long run it can help you. But definitely, I think the guys are lucky because you know, if I wish I had someone just like, you know, one-on-one just say, hey man, what do I do here? And they're like, oh, you just do this. And it's definitely a lot faster track how to get better. That's for sure.
On June 20th, you'll be participating in Submission Series Pro. You refereed the last event. What was that like?
It was pretty fun. It was pretty exciting. You know, like it was. Man, all the fights were awesome. You were there as well, and man, like I think every fight was a submission. So I mean, in the last second was Kyle and Satava, and with 1 second left, he knee barred him. I mean, it was an awesome experience. Just you know, to be there. I was the closest guy to the whole fight. So other than the mat area being a little small, and I think this next event, I think it's gonna be a lot bigger. So other than that, I think the event was awesome, and it was a cool experience to ref.
Now, that was all up in your neck of the woods. There was such an amazing crowd there. Did that surprise you, or did you know that it would be so well received?
Yeah, like, you know what? In Pictou County, the community has been really good to me. Everybody's been really supportive to me. Like, anytime I ever put anything on Facebook, I get lots of likes from people that aren't even into jiu-jitsu. They're just, you know, like, we're a small town here, but everybody takes care of everybody, and you know, I think they really came out and supported, you know, Cat Clark for putting it on, and you know, supported guys from our club in Halifax Titans. Like Pictou County is a kind of a, you know, it's a fight town. They love any kind of fighting, so it's you know, there's lots of hockey here, and some boxing comes from Art Hafey, and you know, it's you know, they're known to have some good fighters come out of Pictou County, so. I think it's, you know, they support as much as they can to any event, you know, or any local guy putting something on. So it was great.
You mentioned spending a lot of time with the MG in Action, Marcelo Garcia in Action website. When you're on that website, have you ever seen your future opponent, Dan Koval?
Yeah, I have, man. And you know what, man? He's a really good fighter. Like, I'm super honored to get to fight Daniel, man. Like, you know, I've never had the chance to actually compete as a black belt, and other than to compete with a guy who's a level his high and get to train at Marcelo's every day. And so I'm super excited and honored that he actually would fight me. So, you know, thanks to Cat Clark for, you know, making that happen and Submission Series Pro. So, you know, it's, you know, I'm not young anymore. I'm close to 40, so, you know, I'm glad I'll get to do this fight. You know, I can look back and say, you know, I did a sub-only fight against a really good opponent, you know. So I'm looking at fun.
What do you make of his game?
Oh, I know he has a really good full guard. You know, obviously has a DVD out full guard, and I mean, I've only watched a few rolls of him and Marcelo, and he does well. I mean, he's a great fighter. So I mean, and, it's Nogi, so hopefully we'll have an exciting match, and we'll be flipping and flopping everywhere and put on a show for the crowd. That's the main thing to do. I think go for the finish. And if he comes for Marcelo's, I know he'll be going for the finish as well. So I think it'll be a really exciting fight.
And your game is based largely on Marcelo Garcia's game, to at least what I've seen from you lately. Do you feel like that's going to be an advantage for Dan Koval? I mean,
I think
obviously
he's
it's a game
he's used to my style, because I follow Marcelo's style a lot, and he's definitely going to be used to it. So, I've been training a little bit different stuff, like honestly, just maybe something different. So he's not so used to Marcelo's style. Because I kind of just follow Marcelo's style. I try not to stem far from it because, like I say, I've been on MMA action so long, and I try to keep to his game. And but I have a few things that I like, that I developed through the years that I like on my own that I developed off of that. So hopefully, I'll catch something, and hopefully we put a good show on.
I like to consider myself a close guard guy, and I'm excited to see Dan Koval's close guard. A very unique sort of approach to the close guard. He inverts quite a bit underneath. Do you have a chance to train with people who are using that sort of guard to prepare for it?
I mean, I definitely tell guys to put me in full guard, and I'm trying to get them to work that position a lot. So it's I say like maybe not try to get in the first place would be a good thing with him, but like I say, I'm definitely going out there for the finish and try to put on a good show. I'm not too worried about any position. I just want to worry about my game, but I want to also be prepared for what if he puts me in a position I don't like, because I know his full guard is really good, and I'm sure he's good in other positions as well. But I know for sure he has a really good full guard. So I'll have to definitely watch out for that and train hard to defend that.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard of him too much. I just caught wind of that, DVD, and I started looking into him. For people who aren't familiar with him, if you tune into the MG in Action website, you can occasionally catch him tapping out Marcelo in rolls. I say he hip bumps Marcelo and catches him with an armbar from top.
Yeah, he's full guard. He comes up at a weird angle and almost like takes that arm as you're pushing him back down. And, he's got a good Kimura from there, and I'm sure some other tricks. Marcelo's, he's amazing. So if you're doing it to him, it's you're pretty good. So it's gonna be fun. I'm glad, like I said, I'm very honored that he took this fight, against a guy, just a local guy like me, right? So it'll be the only chance I get to fight a guy, at his stature, and I'm very honored that he took the fight. So it should be fun.
What do you make of the shape of jiu-jitsu in Nova Scotia right now? It seems like we're in an exciting period of growth.
Yeah, man. I think we're right there. Like the young guys coming up now. I think Halifax Titans, and you got Fit Plus, you got Shidokai, you got Baya. I hope I don't leave anybody out. And Zombie for us, Truro Merrimack. Then you got the New Brunswick guys. You got lots of clubs, and I think we need a little more tournaments going on. I think around here to make us get that competitive edge. That's the only thing. I wish every club would have a tournament each, and help them make a little money, and plus get our competitors out there compete more. I think that's the only thing we're lacking is more competition. If we have one every 5 months, you get rusty, and you got to compete all the time. I mean, that's the thing. The difference is other clubs in New York, and they're competing all the time. And we need to start as clubs as holding more tournaments together. And I forgot about Forcia. They're also a club. They're good too. So, I mean, if everybody starts holding tournaments, and I think everybody's going to build each other and get stronger and stronger. And I think because we're right there. Yeah, a lot of our guys are going to competitions, doing great. I mean, look at Presley and all those guys. They're doing great. So I mean, if we just get a little more competition, and I think we'll be right up there with the top level guys.
I think it's an excellent point. There were 16 clubs at the Abaya tournament, and I don't think there are 16 tournaments, that you can drive up to. I mean, if there were 16, that'd be more than one a month, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? If we had one a month, that would be awesome. You know, I think it would grow.
So what are you guys doing?
More.
You guys have had a tournament last year at Pictou County. Are you doing it again this year?
Yeah, we had two of them, and I'm looking now for a venue, and I know another club that has been talking to me about helping them run a tournament. So I don't want to conflict any dates, but I'm definitely looking soon. Like hopefully before summer, because I always know Fit Plus puts on one in June or July, I think. So
that sounds very right.
One in between there, maybe the end of May, maybe. You know, it's hard. Maybe even I don't know. I'll have to see what Scott's tournament Fit Plus is having it, and then I'll try to have one behind that or in front of it, whatever. You know, I never like to interfere people having a tournament because there's enough space in the year to everybody to spread out with each other, not hurting each other's tournaments, right? So hoping to have one soon. And I know another club is looking, and I know Scott, and then we're going to have one probably this summer. So it's that'll be hopefully good. 3 good tournaments in a row, and I think my guys are all excited. They did well at the tournament. They're pumped to do another one right away. So I don't want them to lose that drive that they have right now. That's I find if the tournaments go so long in between that they kind of lose that drive to push themselves because they were pushing themselves the last 2 months and. I never seen them do that before. Drive for a tournament. Now they're all excited for the next one, and there's no date set for one. So I really want to put one on soon, and hopefully Scott puts one on the summer. So it'd be good to get 2 in.
What besides submission series June 20th at the Bellerose Arts Center in Halifax? What else do you have coming up?
Nothing really. Just teaching. I teach every day. My club is built right behind my house. I built a building for just specifically the club. My my fiance and my son, they're right there beside me in jiu-jitsu. They live right in it, and I always like to say thank you to my fiance. She puts up with me doing jiu-jitsu every night, and she, I get to see her for an hour after class, and so, thank them for, my son, he comes out I started a kids program, he comes out and trains with me, so, we built the club right behind the house, so it's, it's in our family now, and it's part of our, our life, so I'm really happy about that, so I said thank you to them for doing that.
Doesn't get any better than that. Jaret, do you have any sponsors or anyone you want to thank before we go tonight?
Not really, I just like to thank my students and, and Titans Halifax, Peter and Kevin for hanging out with me for the years and great to be the black belt and Cat Clark for putting on a submission series. I think he's really building jiu-jitsu and the BS show too. Thanks very much, Craig, for you guys having me on. Rick and Boyd and those guys and Skip, and I really appreciate everybody. And hopefully we can grow this sport of jiu-jitsu that we love in Nova Scotia. I'm all about. My club's open to anybody, any club, anytime. Let's come down and train with me. My club's open to anybody. I don't turn away anybody, no matter where you're from or who you're with.
Hey, Jaret, will you give out the club information, like, phone number, location, or maybe some social media information for fans?
Sure. We're Pictou County Titans on Facebook, or you can add me, Jaret and Carly MacIntosh, on my Facebook as well. And that's pretty much the best way to get a hold of me. And if anybody ever wants to come down, and just shoot me a message on Facebook, and I'll give you the location. We'd love to have you. And like I say, we can grow this sport. And Nova Scotia is a small province, so if we all come together and grow the sport, I think it will make us all stronger in jiu-jitsu. I'm all about uniting people.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jaret.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate you having me on, and hopefully some other time I'll get on to talk again.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you again on the mats and finally making another effort to pass your guard. Someday I'm going to make it.
Thanks very much, Craig. Appreciate it.
All right. Jaret MacIntosh from Pictou County Titans. Skippy, what do you make of all that? You're listening to a lot of inside talk on maritime jiu-jitsu there.
I'm a big fan of what you guys do up there and what you guys have been developing for the last, decade, really. For me, this was a great show. I know I'm usually one of the guys who jumps in and talks a lot, but I just sat back and really, as a fan tonight, just thoroughly enjoyed this show. Both guests, Dana and Jaret, both came across, well spoken. They definitely carried the local BJJ scene with pride, and the stories that intertwined in both interviews were great.
Awesome. Well, look, I'm back next week, and I don't know what I'm going to bring on, but I think I've got a lot of food for thought, and we wound up with some pretty interesting topics today, everything from kids jiu-jitsu to sort of the history of jiu-jitsu and MMA here in Nova Scotia, and we'll see what next week offers. I'll come up with something.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to doing another show with you. I think you did an amazing job tonight. I know Rick and Boyd will, if they're not listening now, they will listen to the replay, and they'll be very proud of the job you did. I'm a big fan. I'm actually getting ready to quit smoking and get back onto the mats after like 20 years of being a cigarette smoker. So, and my kids want to do it. So, I mean, all the way around, for me, this is just bringing the passion back into my life again after, 20 years. So I thoroughly enjoyed the show tonight. You couldn't have done a better job, brother.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Skippy. What does Boyd say at the end? He says, that's enough BS for this week.
And remember to always wear your sunscreen. That's a cool song. That's what Rick always says.
Jiminy Crickets. Thanks again, Skippy. Talk to you in a week.
Later, brother.
To the BS Show. Are you ready to shoot the... The BS Show would like to thank their sponsors. Jack Cameron, accredited mortgage professional. Jack can show you the way home. Graco Impact Sports, providing top-quality combat sport equipment tested and used by all levels of athletes. Dominate your world. RepoSales.ca, specializing in vehicle and equipment recovery, liquidation, and sales. Hemmings House Pictures, the global movement media makers, helping tell your brand story to the world and accelerate the momentum of your movement. Farmbox Films, capturing stories the way you want to remember them.